I think the best way to significantly improve your chances of your PhD application is to have a look at the faculty members of the university or institution that you are currently in and have a look at their connections, their collaborators on recent papers, whether or not they've done any sort of like sabbaticals to other research labs. What you need to do is produce and create a personal connection to the university or institution that you're applying to. The easiest way to do that is to leverage the relationships that already exist within your university you're currently at. Like, it really can help. Academia is so insular, particularly within an individual field. Everyone knows everyone. So if you can get a personal connection from the university, an academic you currently know, to another institution, not only will it help the institution you're applying at kind of have some confidence in your application, but also your letter of recommendation, which we'll get onto in a little bit more, they will really sort of put more weight on that. Having an application from an unknown university with no personal connections can be a very, very tough sell, and that's when you really need to sort of lean on your own experience. But build those relationships, look for a multi-pronged approach if you can, and that will significantly increase the chances. A PhD shouldn't be taken lightly, and you need to actually build confidence in the people reading your application that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Now, this means showing that you have a little bit of research experience, that at least you've dabbled in your undergraduate or in your master's in the academic environment. You need to make sure your application shows that you know what the stresses of academia are. That really the priority is getting peer-reviewed papers. If you have got your name on a peer-reviewed paper, or if you've just helped someone sort of like get a manuscript to publication just by looking over it, even if you've just looked at it for spelling mistakes and your name isn't on the paper or the acknowledgements, you can lean on that experience to kind of boost up that confidence in your application. So if you have had anything to do with the real academic process of publishing papers, getting grants, you need to make sure that that is front and center in your application. They need to have confidence you know what you're going into. And also, a really great thing to do is to have a personal website with your experience, with your desires, with your, career mission, with the things that interest you. You can then link to that in your application, and it just sort of like builds that confidence that you've gone out of your way to produce a personal academic website that really highlights and showcases the best of you. So make sure that you really sort of like have a look at the experience you've got and make that really obvious at some point in your application. It's all about building confidence in you. Now, one thing I've got to say is that applying to a university, any university, is a gamble. There are so many sort of random things that can happen which mean that you do or do not get a certain PhD application approved. However, do gamble on top universities if you have the metrics that would match a candidate that would be sort of like accepted into those top universities. Go check out my other video where I talk about like the top universities. But it is very important that if you have got incredibly high sort of undergraduate master's scores, if you have got research experience, if you have got experience in a lab, if you've got experience in anything to do with your current field that you want to go into, even if it's volunteering, those things can really help you stand out, and it's kind of your secret sauce. So if you do feel like you've got any sort of chance of getting into top universities, and importantly that you actually want to go to a top university, knowing that it's hyper competitive and that you will be expected to work longer and harder, and some of the professors arguably are a little bit more sort of strict and expect much more from their PhD students. Anyway, if that is for you, if you feel like you want to go to a Stanford, a Harvard, an Oxford, a Cambridge, do apply, because there is so much noise out there that you do have to give it a go, and you never know, it may just sort of like the stars will align and you will be accepted. However, you do have to have a lot of backup plans. So go check out my other video where I talk about creating a funnel for PhD applications, because that's exactly what you need to do. But do not be put off by top universities, sort of like, their hyper competitive application process, because it is about a gamble. There's so much noise out there that it could be you. So why not give it a go and then just not sort of like expect that, but hope for it, and then also have backup plans in other universities. Yes, that's what I want to say about top universities. So the first thing I would do right now, if I was looking for a PhD position, is I would reach out to potential supervisors by email, phone, and I would even write them a letter. I would go old school, because they get so many emails that giving them a phone call, just asking to be put through to their office, or at least to, their secretary or to someone in their lab, can really help to sort of like get that personal connection going. I would write a letter, a handwritten letter to this professor if their research interests match mine perfectly. Like, this is where you have to kind of build those relationships, and you do have to go a little bit above and beyond, because even when I was in academia, I would receive sort of unsolicited emails about, hey, are you looking for PhD students? And I'll be honest with you, a lot of them were just like really low effort emails and applications, and it didn't sort of inspire confidence in me as a potential supervisor to be like, oh yeah, this person is perfect. Normally it's a very little thing, little email with a CV attached, and to be honest with you, that just doesn't stand out. So writing a letter, making sure that you've got like a list of academics where you do want to build up a little bit of a relationship with them, and just reach out, ask about their research interests. And I've talked about this in other videos, but in fact, when you're applying and when you're building up these sort of like relationships, don't talk about the application, talk about the research. Get them talking about something that they really sort of are passionate about, and that can help sort of like help build the appropriate feelings, the feelings of excitement that they will get about speaking about their research to someone new, and you want them to sort of like put those feelings with you and in their mind, and that can really help. So reach out to potential supervisors, but don't just sort of like send one email and think, oh, I've done my job. You do have to sort of like keep on building that relationship. Like I said, personal letters, phoning them up, asking about a time where you can chat over Zoom even, all of those things can really help increase your application success rate, no doubt. So I talked in the first part of this video about having a known connection to someone, i.e. a current faculty member in your current university, a connection they have to someone else in another institution, and that can really help your success rates. But it doesn't stop there. The recommendation letter or letter of recommendation has to be very sort of personalized to what you want it to say. And it is absolutely okay to provide the people you want a letter of recommendation from a guideline and to say, hey, I would love for you to talk about these things, because what we're doing is creating congruency between our application, the application sort of process, and what we want others to say about us. It's about sort of like building up that perfect congruent brand around you. And so just saying, hey, can I have a letter of recommendation? And I think one thing that would be really important for me to come out of this letter is these things, whether or not it was your research experience, whether or not it's your paper experience, whether or not you've helped out in a lab, your special source, whatever it is, you need to make sure that not only you mention it, but someone outside of you, i.e. this letter of recommendation, also mentions it. So send a template and just say, talk about this, please. Talk about this, please. Talk about, and if they do, brilliant. If they don't, it's not a huge issue, but you will increase your chances of success if you're talking about your best bits and the person that is giving you a letter of recommendation is talking about your best bits. That congruency is powerful. Now, if there's a lab or a supervisor that you just absolutely want to be part of their team, it is okay to take the indirect route. Now, what I mean is if you get a no, if you are unsuccessful with your PhD application, but you are certain you want to work with this person, and I have seen this happen sort of 2 or 3 times in my career, is you can ask them for other opportunities in their lab at the moment. They may have a summer scholarship, they may have a master's program, they may have just a research assistant in their lab. And I've seen the research assistant approach work really well, where you say, okay, well, look, is there another opportunity to work with you at the moment? I wasn't successful with my PhD. And then once you've got your foot in the door, once you're working in this other sort of like capacity in their lab, you become a known entity. And I have seen people turn a research assistant or a summer scholarship position into a PhD. And in fact, one person actually did their research assistant thing, turned it into a PhD, and then was like, oh, I don't actually like the PhD. And that's absolutely okay. And they went back to becoming a research assistant. And it was just sort of like, them trying to see if a PhD works for them. So it's perfectly okay to take an indirect route to a PhD. If you know you want to be in a particular field, if you know that a certain professor or a lab or a group just is like the perfect match for you, and it's a no for a PhD right away, ask for other opportunities. And once you've got your foot in the door, then you can upgrade or downgrade, if you want to consider it like that, to a PhD and go from there. So yeah, I've seen it happen. It does happen. It works really well. And if you can just spend 6 months in someone's lab, it's amazing how much that sort of relationship can build to the point where then they'll consider you and sort of like be in your corner when you apply for your PhD the next time. So there we have it. There are all of the really simple things that you can do to make sure that your PhD application is even more successful. We are far beyond just sending an email. We are far beyond just sort of like scattergunning the world to see what can happen. You have to be targeted. You have to be sort of very careful about who you approach, how you approach them, and how they perceive you. So build that congruency, make sure that you've got those personal connections, build up those relationships, and go a little bit above and beyond once you've identified those people and those labs and those supervisors that you just want to work with and in. So there we are. Let me know in the comments what you would add to this. I love reading your comments. So thank you very much for adding so much more value to these videos. And also, if you want more, go check out academiainsider.com. That's my project where I've got my 2 ebooks, the Ultimate Academic Writing Toolkit, as well as the PhD Survival Guide. And if you want free stuff, go check out my newsletter, where you'll get 5 emails over about 2 weeks, everything from the tools I use, the podcasts I've been on, how to write the perfect abstract, and more. It's exclusive content available for free. Nowhere else can get it. And it's yours, so go sign up. What have you got to lose? All right, I'll see you in the next video.